Hey everyone, John Lorden here. Welcome to a new episode of BrainScratch Searchlight for today, January 24th, 2018. Thank you so much for spending some time with me here today. Today's case is pretty interesting. There is an amazing lack of detail in this case, and it's tough because you have a sister that is working very hard to get information out about her missing brother, but there's just some of the basics we have no details on. We don't have a really solid timeline. I can't even tell you basically what town he was living in, or was he living alone. But there's this amount of coverage that's happening on this case where it's not quite breaking through to major media sources, but there's this little buzz of information, thanks in large part to his sister, that is making just a little bit of noise on social media. It was just enough noise that a few of you brain scratchers noticed it, picked up on it, and sent it my way, and I'm so thankful that you did. I'm going to start by reading you a message posted by his sister on the Facebook page for Help Find Marty Nance. Another day passes by, 16 days now. Where is my brother? He is a piece of me just like my kids, and I can't stand this. It's heartbreaking for so many. I need police to access his phone and/or phone records. Without this information, we have no way to know who he may have been talking to, texting with, or internet searching to provide us with pieces to this giant puzzle. Police say they can't without proof of foul play, but I'm sure there's a way. There's always a way. This isn't right on so many accounts, and the clock keeps ticking. Are they waiting for a dead body to prove foul play? When is long enough to wait? Marty has never disappeared in his life. I need to know what happened, and police hold a giant key in their hands. They need to use it now. Obviously, you can tell she's very frustrated with the investigation, and this is a really tough spot for these cases to be in. Unfortunately, many of these missing person cases, especially when they go outside of that, there's that familiar convention we always hear of, well, most people come back within 72 hours. Yeah, I understand that. But once these cases go this long, we're talking 16 days. She literally posted this just 14 hours ago. When is that a trigger? When is that enough for police to say, okay, this is getting serious now? We found this guy's vehicle, his cell phone was in it. At a minimum, they should be checking his accounts. Is he using his checking accounts? Is he pulling any money? And after there's a certain amount of days, this is just my belief, I just wish that there was some more common sense around these types of issues. After a certain amount of days, there should be a logical conclusion that if he is not pulling any of his funds, first of all, if he has money in the account and it's just sitting there, how is he taking care of himself? We can't assume that there is some way that he is just able to be thriving and living if he's not using any finances in any way. And shouldn't that be enough of an indicator for, hey, we need to step up the investigation here? I don't know. I also understand it from the police side. Look, they need to, basically get a judge to sign off on these warrants for them to go and ask for this type of information. So I understand it from both sides. It's just so tough when, you're dealing in missing person cases on a regular basis like I am, and you see this trend of, look, a lot of these turn out to be horrible, horrible situations. The good outcomes in these cases is a pretty small number. So why is the default position in these cases that, hey, we can't tell that anything's wrong? Because if we look at the numbers of it, yeah, you can tell that the likelihood of something being wrong is much higher than if this person obviously wasn't missing at all. So this is a real tough one. You can see in the middle of the screen, they have a billboard. It's kind of a sweet story we'll get to about the billboard later. Missing since January 6th, Air National Guardsman Marty Nance, age 49, 5'10", 175 pounds. They have contact information. I'll have that in the description box below as well. Let's look at some better pictures here. And from what I understand, you can see on the picture on the right, he doesn't really have a goatee, but in the picture on the left, he does. His sister says that when she saw him at Christmas, he had the goatee. So if you see him in person, there's a very good chance that he would still have that goatee. On top of that, he's got a shaved head. If there was a hair color, it looks like he's got some stubble coming in here. It looks like it would probably be gray. He has hazel eyes. We have no clothing description. The vehicle, as I mentioned before, has been found, so we don't have a vehicle we're looking for. We're literally looking for a missing man in Oregon, in the Portland area, a particular neighborhood called Sellwood. This is an area of about 10,000 residents. Seems to actually be a fairly nice area. I'm not sure how often things like this happen there, but the feeling I'm getting just from the research I've done on this is things like this don't happen there a whole lot. So let's continue with the news coverage we do get here. Jumping over to kgw.com. We have our first article. This was posted on January 14th, 2018. And the first thing they noted was Martin Nance, 49, is listed as missing on the national database. I don't know what national database they're actually talking about, because I went looking for his record at NamUs, which is certainly the national database that is at least publicly accessible, and he's not here. And that's a little bit of a problem. So let me also just put the word out to his sister. I would love to be able to enter his record here, but I can't even find enough information to get a record entered that they would activate. So if there's some way I can help you with that, please reach out to me. Let's get connected. Let's get those additional details, and I will definitely help you get his NamUs record entered. I know she's frustrated because she feels like she's handling a lot on her own. I totally understand that. She is certainly the quarterback in this missing persons case. Every case needs one. She has really stepped up and has been working hard. Others are searching, including many fellow Air Guard members. Marty was a full-time Air Guardsman for nearly 30 years, going part-time just a few years ago. He's a mechanic who works on the Air Guard's fleet of F-15 fighter jets. In semi-retirement, Sergeant Nance has been driving for Lyft. Family believes he left his car at Southeast 17th Avenue and Miller Street sometime Saturday, but they don't know why. And let me just pull up a map on this area real quick. And I was kind of surprised when I saw this area, just in terms of vehicles being left behind. This is, by all means, it just looks like a regular neighborhood. You've got a couple of small businesses, some dance studios up here, but just a very common kind of suburb neighborhood here. Not a whole lot of clues, I think, that we can get from that. I do wonder, based on the information about him working for Lyft, if there's been any connectivity there in terms of police talking to Lyft and asking them about this particular case, saying, was he working on Saturday? Do we know where he was driving around? Are those records accessible? Would Lyft at least help release those to the police department? I'm not sure. It's strange because I've always kind of had this assumption when it comes to Lyft and Uber that those should be fairly safe because of the data that's backing them. Like, you wouldn't want to be committing a crime on either side of the fence of being a Lyft or Uber driver or being in one of those cars, because everything should be tracked so strongly because of how data-driven that business is. But what I'm not certain of is how accessible is that data. Do those businesses keep it locked down, or do they participate in helping missing family members when they have loved ones go missing, like we do in this case, where he is a Lyft driver? He failed to show up for a guard drill on Sunday, missing it for the first time in 30 years. Once again, I totally understand why his sister's name is Lisa Weber. I totally understand why she's concerned. I understand why that information might once again, when compiled with the other information, left his phone behind. We can check and see if he's spending any money. If he's not, we've got a lot of points kind of directing us into a direction that something bad might have happened to him here. And him acting out of character in this way, I mean, missing a guard drill for the first time in 30 years is certainly another check on that side of something strange is going on in this case, and it deserves to be investigated. Quote, "I've known Marty for many years, and it's personally difficult for me," said Colonel Duke Pyrak, commander of the 142nd Fighter Wing of the Oregon Air National Guard. "And it's very frustrating that we haven't figured out what's going on and where he's at right now. Obviously, we're thinking about the family." And from what I've read, there's been a lot of Air National Guard members that have been participating in searches. From what I can see, it looks like there's been kind of 3 major searches with as many as, I think, 75 people on the high side. I saw one of the other searches where it sounded like there was more like 30 people. They are blanketing areas with posters. There's a lot of effort going on in terms of trying to find him, but it just hasn't quite happened yet. There's also another entry over at missingveterans.com about Martin, or Marty. I guess he goes by Marty as well. And this has a little twist on the story, which some people are confused about. I saw this question come up in the Web Sleuths thread on this as well. Martin Nance is also a driver for the on-demand transportation company Lyft. A rental car that Martin Nance was known to be driving was found at Southeast 17th Avenue and Miller Street in Portland, Oregon's Sellwood neighborhood. There's one report that I've seen, a news report, where they were saying that it was a rental car that he was using that was found in that area. The assumption on Web Sleuths is, are they getting that wrong because they're thinking he works for a car rental service? Essentially, he works for Lyft, a rideshare service. So did they just misword it on their report? And is that now getting carried over here to missing veterans? I don't know. This is definitely one of the things I would love to clear up with Lisa. Let me just put it out there right now, Lisa. If you would like to come on the channel and give us much more detail and try to raise exposure to this case even more, please reach out to me. Please contact me. You can email me at John, John, at lordanarts.com, LORDANARTS.com, and we will definitely set that up. There's just so many holes in this story. I also kind of want to understand Marty a bit more, just in terms of what type of person he is. It might give us some clues in terms of what's going on here that we just really can't deduce right now because there's so little to look at. And I know that you're trying to convince law enforcement that they should be looking into this case a bit stronger. But when the details are so light here, it's hard to actually point at things and say, because of this, because of that, we know that he had some known enemies. We know that he had a bad relationship here. We know that this, father-in-law didn't like him. Whatever the conditions are, we don't have any angles on that right now to understand what might be affecting this situation. So, Lisa, I think it's likely that you could help us understand that situation a little bit better and maybe increase our chances of maybe turning the tide with law enforcement in terms of getting them to look into this a bit differently. Continuing over at Reddit, and now I'm basically going to give you some comments that are coming from his sister. It's really the best source of information that I'm finding in this case. So I just want to get it all out there, put it all to you guys so you understand what's happening here. A comment from her popped up on a Reddit thread about this case. No one has seen or heard from him since Saturday when he spoke to a friend on the phone. I talked to him Saturday and he sounded fine. We saw him at Christmas and he was fine. He had this goatee at Christmas. Today, more than 30 Guard members canvassed the Sellwood area, including the parks, and passed out hundreds of flyers. They are awesome and want to bring their man home. It was very special, which I really think is a highlight in terms of a very dark story. And Done That commented, hope law enforcement or you can get his Lyft and phone ping history. The phone ping history is interesting because we know that his phone is found in the car. So I'm not particularly sure how much that would help us outside of seeing where he traveled before that and how his car got to that spot. It could actually be pretty helpful if you saw that he stopped at someone in particular's house and then you were able to cross-reference that with, oh, I do know that person. That's someone from his past or something like that. So the thing that's tough there is if law enforcement can't get the warrants to get that information, how else would you get that information? Even just to have his phone call history might be helpful, as Lisa was saying in the first letter that we read in this episode. But that's once again tough if he had his own account. If he had a family member he was sharing accounts with, sometimes you can get around that. If the family member is listed on that account as well, they can call in and request that history. Or if the bill is still mailed to them, they can just check their mailbox and get the bill with the call detail. But in a case where it's a single person, if they own their own account, getting that information could be quite a bit tougher. So I think that might be the situation we have here, but I'm not 100% sure. Jumping over to kptv.com. We got another comment from Lisa. He said he was going to go to his guard drill on Sunday. I thought nothing of it until I got the call that he never showed up. So apparently when she spoke to him, he mentioned in specific where he was planning on going on Sunday. It occurs to me that if he was thinking about not going to that for some reason, if he was having some kind of internal conflict, or he wanted to maybe get out of that situation or something like that, he's probably not going to tell his sister, oh yeah, I've got a guard drill on Sunday coming up that I'm going to. She says she tried to call him, but his phone went straight to voicemail. Nothing where the car was found points to foul play. So I would take that to mean that they didn't find anything obvious in the car, any signs of a struggle, any type of blood splatter, or pieces of clothing or anything like that. Quote, "We don't know exactly where to go next, and we need any kind of clue that leads us to the next spot," Weber said. Man, just a really, really tough one, and I can certainly feel for his sister in this case. Jumping over to KATU.com. Once again, kind of a bright spot in this story. Family members tell KATU News that they received a donation of 8 billboards between Clackamas, that's the county that this is going on in, and Washington counties. Really just lifts up my heart a little bit to hear about people helping each other out like this. And for them to donate 8 billboards and to put his image up and ask people for help, that's a pretty wonderful thing. So I just wanted to call that out, that, if you are ever in this type of situation where you have a missing loved one, don't be afraid to ask for help. You might be surprised at some of the things that can be done there. This is a very good example of that. Jumping over to another article at KATU.com, we see some more pictures of him here. And his sister is commenting, "This is alarming. He was a creature of habit. He had things he did every day. He had routines. To just not show up when he knows to show up is alarming. It tells me that something is horribly wrong," Weber said. Outside of that, I went looking I've tried to pull up every website basically that had any reference to him. I did find what is known as the Oregon Missing Persons clearinghouse, where it's basically just kind of like a giant Excel sheet where they're listing every missing person case that is happening in Oregon. They do have a record here for him, just confirming the same information. We're talking about a 49-year-old white male, hazel eyes, about 180 pounds, standing at, I think they're saying 5'9" here, but somewhere between 5'9", 5'10", according to the information I've seen, missing out of Clackamas County. But once again, even there, I'm not positive what city in particular he is missing from. As I mentioned previously, there is a Web Sleuths thread. It's not very long, but certainly some interesting information. And I always find that Web Sleuths is a good source for news stories that don't always pop up on Google searches. I actually found a couple of the news stories related to this case from Web Sleuths, so might be worth your time if you want to look into this case more by taking a look at that there. And of course, here is Marty Nance, and we are all wondering where you are. Once again, Lisa, the offer is here. I would certainly have you on the channel, help us clear up some of these many questions and try to raise more exposure to this case. And let me just say that it is inspiring to see what you have done so far. I know that you're feeling overwhelmed with some of this, but just try to keep it manageable. Don't let other aspects of your life go to the wayside. I know it's got to be a tricky thing to balance. I think you mentioned that you had children in one of the letters that we read as well. I know you're balancing a lot with all this, but just know that every day, if you just take a little step, make a little bit of progress on this case, you're heading in the right direction. And one of these days, that step might be the thing that actually cracks it. So we are all here with you, and we are wishing the best for you. All right, everyone, this is where I turn it over to you. Let's talk about this in the comments below. Do you have any theories on what's going on with this case? And do me a favor, if you have particular questions for Lisa, let's go ahead and start listing those in the comments below. If I do get to line up an interview with her, I will certainly come back to this video, check those comments, and use that as the basis for the interview. So if you have specific questions on that, drop those in the comments below as well. Thank you so much for caring about these cases like I do, to spend time with me on a video like this. I really appreciate you guys out there, and I can't do it without you. That's part of what makes all this work. So thank you so much for being there. Take care, everyone, and I'll see you here tomorrow on the Lord and Arch channel.